Your L7 Weenie, that's me, Al Travis, on Al in the Afternoon. I am lucky enough to have Representative Jeremy Munson on the line with us today. And I do thank you for jumping in, sir, when I called. I thank you. I want to start with this topic. I don't know how much you can even say about it. You've always been good with me, but because he's a fellow representative, maybe you can't say much. Let me throw this out about Representative Thompson. We might have gone too far. I'm the first one to say this in society. When an elected representative in the state of Minnesota doesn't even argue that he didn't have a license plate on the front of his car or that his license was invalid in Minnesota or any of the stuff he got his ticket for, he's just saying it's racism. You start doing that now, there's no one you could pick up that has a different nationality, a different color than you, and you're a racist. He's not even saying I didn't have a license plate. What is he doing? Does he know what he's doing? You probably can't say.
Yeah. I mean, it's certainly crazy all the evidence that's come in and shed light on. Perhaps maybe we should have, not just voter ID, but like legislator ID. We should be requiring IDs for people running for office to make sure they live where they say they live.
Well, yeah, but a couple of things on that. Let's go down that road. I don't remember when I ran for county commissioner, went down the county courthouse and I filled some papers out. I don't know if I flashed in my driver's license. I don't remember, but I presume there's something on there, put my name and address, and I, under the penalty of perjury, all this stuff is correct, right? I presume you do that if you're a House of Representatives or a senator or the governor. Here's the thing. The Secretary of State, he doesn't go through every one of those people. Let's say there's 400 people in a year that are running. He doesn't check he's not out there checking everyone. I presume under you sign your name, you're saying this is all correct, right? I mean, am I wrong? Is that the Secretary of State's job?
Yeah, you certainly you attest that you live in the district, but as I've noted on social media, there's about a half dozen Republicans and Democrats combined that legislators currently serving that don't live in their districts. It's pretty well known. And so, I think that we need to hold legislators to a higher standard. Maybe we should change the requirements. Maybe we should require that they have 3 constituents or future constituents that, sign an affidavit swearing that they live in the district so that there's, we can hold them to a little bit more accountability.
Well, okay. And again, I don't have any problem with that. It seems weird you're going to not live in the district you want to run, and I get it. But okay, the difference being things change. Let's say you've been in whatever district for whatever. Like this summer, we're going to redistrict everybody, right? We're going to draw maps, and maps are going to change. It's like, I don't live there anymore. I get that. Maybe you're a single person when you got elected and you married and you moved in with the spouse and you don't live there. I get it. But then maybe you don't run the next time. They just, things change. I understand they change. But if I'm understanding what happened with Thompson right, he literally wins his seat, and then he went and filed for another license in Wisconsin.
Yeah. It seems like there was some issues with past due child support in Minnesota, so that he couldn't get a driver's license here. So his driving privileges were suspended in Minnesota because of the past due child support.
But let's say that's true. Here's a law you got to write down. Just if we say you can't drive in Minnesota because you're not Minnesota nice or whatever reason, you just can't go to the next state and get a driver's license and then come back and drive in Minnesota, can you? I mean, that just seems like you're going around the bush here.
Yeah, I believe that he broke a law in Wisconsin, and he'll have to deal with the Wisconsin authorities on that one.
Okay, now let's go with what we find out today. So today we find out that he's going to court for a few other things, have nothing to do with this incident yet, because this just happened last week. But he's going to court, and his lawyers sending the papers for it are being sent to an address that is not in the district. His lawyer says, well, that's just where we're sending the mail. He still lives in the district. Again, doesn't give an address. It's like, how foolish do they think we are? And again, just admit it. At some point, just say, okay, I'm 3 blocks out.
Yeah. Well, we have, like I said, we have current legislators that don't live in their district. And one of the things we look for is where they get their mail. In fact, there was a Republican who was called out for not living in his district, and he was taken off the ballot. And they had to have a special election because it was within, so many days of the election. And it was because he was getting his mail where he lives and not where, is in the district. And so that's one of the things that they look for.
We got other bigger fish to fry. I hope that this gets settled out somehow, that there isn't this loophole. I can be Wisconsin. Do you have any what do you get for getting a driver's license in Wisconsin? South Dakota, if that's your residency, you don't pay taxes, income tax. Maybe I get that. I don't get why you want to go to Wisconsin and renew your license. That makes no sense to me.
Yeah, it's very clear. If you own your car outright, you don't have to buy car insurance in Wisconsin. They don't make you buy insurance. The bank might make you buy insurance if you have a loan on it, but if you buy your car with cash, there's no requirement to buy insurance. So that's one of the benefits.
Did not know that. Sir, if you can wait around through the break, I'd love to talk to you. You put something on today about the governor who doesn't understand the session's over and we're not making laws. He's making some laws. Let's talk about that next. Fair enough?
Sounds good.
Representative Jeremy Munson on Al in the Afternoon. That's me. I'm Al Travis. I've got Jeremy Munson, Representative Munson, on the line with us, and I thank him for doing this for me. Okay, a couple of things. This California car thing, I'm going to start with that to lead into the topic I want to talk about. I don't really necessarily get it. I mean, I understand it. Since we're split the House and Senate, nothing gets done, so the governor can just have his commissioners do stuff, and no one can stop us. We're going to have the California. Well, it's passed. It's a done deal. Well, the governor came out and did something like that yesterday. If I'm reading your email, Facebook, right? Tell us what happened with this whole conversion therapy that doesn't exist.
Yeah, so the legislature had debated a bill banning conversion therapy, and what this really does, first of all, conversion therapy is kind of defined as helping someone transition to be a different gender or to transition how they are sexually oriented. Mm-hmm. And the Democrats are concerned that people who are confused about their gender or sexual orientation will go to someone who will change them back to the gender that they were born to, or convince them that they're not same-sex oriented, and they want to ban that practice.
But let me, and I get that. Let me ask you this. So what I don't get is the governor came out and said, because the legislature wouldn't act on it, so he must. But the fact is, you guys didn't mean you acted on it. It didn't pass the legislature. So it's, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So the legislature didn't agree to pass this bill, and the governor came out. The media ran with a headline saying that the governor is going to ban conversion therapy by executive order because the legislature wouldn't act. He was going to circumvent the legislature and write law. But in reality, all the governor did was he banned Medicaid from reimbursing doctors for conversion therapy. Well, they don't do that today, and there's no CPT code or billing code for conversion therapy, or just meeting with a patient and conducting therapy, like a session where you converse with them. So you're just going to bill it the same. So he basically, by executive order, didn't do anything. And he asked the Department of Health to do a study on the impacts of conversion therapy. And I think there was one more thing kind of with the Human Rights Division, but basically he didn't do anything. And that was what my post was about. It was that the legislature debated this. It's a very complex subject. And what the Democrats really believe is happening is we're strapping kids down to gurneys and using electroshock therapy. That's not happening. People are having conversations. And most of the conversations happen in a religious setting, people talking with their imam or their pastor or their, rabbi. Yeah. And that is protected, and the government can't regulate that type of speech.
Well, that's what I was going to go with here. I don't know that I've read or heard a whole lot of folks being shocked in conversion therapy or even given drugs that change their mind. It's all basically in your church or with a psychologist saying, let's talk about your feelings and see where you're at. I don't know that the governor can even touch you talking to your pastor, your priest, your imam, and tell him you can't do that. He got himself in some mucky ground?
Well, he didn't, because he didn't do anything. All he's doing is saying that for medical reasons, licensed practitioners can't be reimbursed for conversion therapy, but there really is no billing code for conversion therapy. So there's really nothing. He didn't really change anything. That's the bottom line. The legislature debated it, and of course, religious institutions are exempt from this. So that was out, and really, we weren't interested in passing a law when it has no effect. There are no medical practitioners that are doing this. And then the legislation was specific to minors only. It was children or vulnerable adults. So it didn't do anything to prevent conversion therapy for adults. And the bigger issue is it didn't address medically or physically altering children, which you hear about in a lot of other states where 6-year-olds are being, converted to another gender because their parents want that. That isn't being prevented with Governor Walz's executive order or even the legislation that was proposed in the House.
Okay, so why do it? I guess what I'm missing, what is I kind of get the California thing. If they can't get it passed, they really want to get it passed. They kind of got to pass. It's going to happen. If it doesn't change anything, it's, I don't get what happens here. Nothing happens.
Yeah. Because it looks great on a campaign mailer, Al, saying that you solved the problem when it really you didn't solve anything. This is a campaign issue for the governor, and of course one of his opponents will likely be Senate Majority Leader Gazelka, who was an outspoken critic of this bill and saying that it didn't do anything and he wasn't interested in passing it. So that's really what it is. This thing printed campaign mailers, but the media got it wrong by saying that the governor was going to ban conversion therapy. He did no such thing.
But they must understand that there's a little help on that side, and I don't mean conspiracy theory, fake news. You just have to understand it when you write the story. Wait a minute, nothing really changed. So that gets me. It's the California standards. Let me ask you: is it always been like this that governors, anyone imagines that you didn't give me what I want during the session, so I just do it by fiat on the off season? How is this? This is the second thing in like months. It's like, how often does this happen?
Yeah, it's getting worse and worse. It's also a problem of the legislature just being deadlocked because they create these huge omnibus bills that become so hyper partisan at the end of session. But the governor does have the authority to do rulemaking, and the legislature passes laws, and then the governor must implement those laws through rulemaking. But this stuff like this, where the legislature doesn't pass it, so he does it anyways, that is completely unacceptable, unconstitutional, and people need to stand up on both sides of the aisle and say, you need to do your job as a legislature, and this is not acceptable.
Fair enough. We probably only got time for one more subject. I'm going to ask you to teach me on this. I got about 3.5 minutes. The civil asset forfeiture you were writing about. Explain this to me. How does it work? When did the government get to take my house? What?
Yeah, so civil asset forfeiture is something the executive branch or the law enforcement branch of government can do. They can take an asset from someone who's not even guilty of a crime. And this started when, back in the 80s, it got worse when, we'd find drug dealers with, enormous semi-load of cash. And they knew that it wasn't, they suspected it wasn't acquired through legal means. So they would confiscate all those dollars. But then it turned out, they were using it for like grandmother that took in her grandson, and he had 2 pot plants in the basement, and she had her house paid off, and the kid gets busted selling weed at school, so that the cops confiscate her house because it's a drug dealer house. They do this all the time in Minnesota with drunk drivers. If you're arrested for drunk driving, they can confiscate your car as long as it's paid off, and even though you're found innocent, they can still keep your car. So you haven't been convicted, sometimes not even charged, and they can confiscate your assets. So several states now, 4 have actually prohibited civil asset forfeiture. I would hope that we would do that in Minnesota, that we should not be taking stuff from people when they're not convicted of a crime.
Well, you would think that would have to come from a judge somehow that say, okay, you're guilty and this is part of the crime. That's the same with the DNR, but I presume the DNR is like one of the biggest law enforcement organizations in the world. They can walk in, we think have too many perch. Walk in, open my freezer and start looking. And hey, you found too many perch. We think take your shotgun, take your truck if you do something wrong out in the woods. They have authority. Would that take that away from them as well? That they write you a ticket, but you're not going to take my truck, my gun, and my house?
Yeah, that would the same thing would apply. And there is a need. Police departments actually count on civil asset forfeiture to help fund their departments. And so we need to make up, with state resources to pay departments appropriately, but we shouldn't be taking money from people or assets from people when they're not guilty of a crime.
Well, what police? I'm sorry. What police force has got a line item in their budget? Money will take from civilians and sell it on an auction. That's a line item, really? If that isn't just for the extra TV or something they need, really?
That's really true.
Wow. All right. Well, I guess we have time for just one more quick. Did you guys solve everything? Are we now just worried about calling Asian carp? Have we got done with everything else?
Well, there's actually a big one, and I'm going to introduce a bill, I think, in the special session with your help in September, Al. I would like to rename Asian lady beetles because I'm worried about all this Asian hate crime that's come up during the pandemic. So help me out here. Should we call them the tax beetle, or the government beetle, or the lobbyist beetle? One of those three.
We'll run the poll here on this show. I love that. Absolutely. Yeah. You got it. Because it's just too, if you're going to hate anybody, let's say that's
government beetle. I like government beetle.
I like the government. I like the tax beetle. Everybody hates the darn taxes. I like the tax beetle. Just smack them. And all right, Representative Munson, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to do this for me today. I call you last minute, and I thank you for doing it.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Al.
All right. Have a good one. We'll get you back on. Representative Jeremy Munson on Al in the Afternoon.